Hey everybody, welcome back. Let's get into talking about our second tissue type, nervous tissue. Now, nervous tissue is probably the tissue type that is the simplest and easiest conceptually to understand. Probably really familiar with it, right? And it's kind of a really charismatic tissue type in terms of its beauty. It just looks unique, right? Our neurons are crazy looking. So, and I say that endearingly. Right, so our nervous tissue, think about the function of nervous tissue. What are our neurons doing, right? Well, they're initiating and they're conducting, they're passing on electrical signals from one part of the body to another. So it's literally our circuitry, right? So it's going to have analogies that overlap with electronics if you're into those. An individual cell of our nervous tissue is, as I'm sure you know, called a neuron. Right? We also have cells that are called glia, and we'll talk about the details of these at a later time. Okay, so when we think of the nervous tissue, right? Now we're talking about the function of the tissue. So many of our neurons and our glia. What is the function? What's the function? Right? It's all about electrical signals. It's all about maintaining those electrical signals, sending them from a source to a destination, right? Typically, the source is going to be the outside world. So we're going to be sensing our environment, smelling our environment, tasting our environment, hearing sounds in our environment, taking in the complex visual information that is sight, right? I just went through all the senses, right? So I think there's one more. Feel, touch, right? We're going to be actually touching our physical environment in different ways. So that is what is contacting our dendrites, and the signal is going to be propagated through our individual neural cells to our axon terminal. And the axon terminal is where our synaptic clefts are, and they'll either connect to more neurons to propagate the signal further, or the axon terminal will connect to a muscle. Right? It'll connect to an organ, but it'll connect to a different tissue type. So the whole the circuitry of our bodies, our highway system, if you will, or maybe a better analogy is the electrical grid of a city. Right? That's what our nervous tissue is all about and is responsible for. Now, the initiation of a new action potential, that's what I just described. The propagation of that signal is called an action potential, and it's the chemical change within the actual neuron, right? So here you can see it. I like this GIF because it shows what it looks like when it's unmyelinated, and myelination is a lipid. I'll talk about that in a second, but when your neuron is unmyelinated, your signal just propagates down the axon, or down the neuron to the axon terminal, like is shown here, right? So, and the mechanism is so cool, right? The actual signal is the pluses that are traveling, right? But every step of the way, we've got all of those membrane channels that are allowing calcium ions to either flush in or flush out very rapidly in order to create this wave, this electrochemical gradient wave that kind of flows down the actual cell itself through the cytoplasm. Okay, so so that's how we initiate our new action potentials. and they're going to propagate the signal further. The point of that, right, like I said, is to get to the synaptic cleft, so that you can, and here is a synaptic cleft that's embedded within a muscle fiber here. This is the actual dendrite here, or axon terminal. It could be either one. I can't tell from this image. And the point of that is to stimulate some type of muscle to contract. And again, we talked about the 3 different types of muscles, right? So it's not always like, oh, you just want to move your arm, right? There's 2 types of muscle tissues that we have that move involuntarily in our bodies. So the ways in which those are triggered to do their contractions is often through signaling from neurons. The signal doesn't start at the brain necessarily, but it might be propagated from another part of the body. Sometimes the point of it is to stimulate a gland, right? And the muscle that is wrapped around a gland to contract, to release hormone molecules, let's say, or to stimulate hormone molecules to be produced, so that they can be then sent to a different part of the body. So next we'll talk about a really big, like percentage-wise, group of tissue in the body, the epithelial tissue.